All right, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Relationships and Reason. Hi, I am Jermaine Malcolm, and
Yes, he is Jermaine, and I am Sophia.
nice to meet you, Sophia.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here with my other half that makes our world go around. So
Awesome to be here. Looking forward to diving into something that I think is very important for us to, one, call out, to speak about. It is the most constant, or consistent, the most constant thing in our lives.
yeah. And today we're gonna talk about change.
Change.
There's a quote that says, "Nothing is constant except change."
Except for change.
Which is an oxymoron. But as you grow, you know that you are changing. You have to change, and you know there's a lot of marriages that don't succeed in our culture today, and my opinion, one of those reasons for that is the change that happens with the individual, the change that happened within the marriage, and both people are not on the same page.
Yeah.
As you grow, you're gonna change, and another thing I like to say, you're not a tree, so you're not gonna be in the same space that you were last year in any way or capacity. So we think that change is extremely important as you grow in marriage.
Yeah, and you've always talked about it, that it's if one person is growing and the other person is not, or if one person is changing and another person is not, or even aware of the change that's taken place, then that's when separation is happening.
Yeah. And when we were discussing this topic, we talked about, a question that came up is like, when did you start to change? And Jermaine mentioned if it's changing before marriage or after marriage, and I said like, you don't know you need to change until you start living with someone, because when you're living by yourself and you're doing your own thing, like, you're fine with yourself, even your faults. You're like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. You can live with it because you're living with yourself, until somebody else comes into your world and you're like, oh.
That is really good, right? So change is irrelevant to the situation, or I guess the place that you're in, or where you want to be. If you want to be in a relationship with somebody else, you got
if you want the relationship to survive
or last, then some change has to take place. Or if you don't want it to, then you can stay how you
of course, you don't have to move. It's up to you. But one of the things that just popped into my head right now when you talk about change, I remember whenever we were dating, and at that point in my life, I used to be a very sarcastic person. Remember that?
Oh, man. Hey, you know what? That's a really good thing, because it's a little bit of a distant memory from me right now, because I remember how big that was during that time for you. Sarcasm, it seems like you had, I don't know, it
was like a second language. It was like natural.
Wow.
It's extremely natural for me.
I am so glad you brought that up.
Thank you. So that means I have grown and changed.
For sure, because it is a distant memory. Wow.
Yeah, so I used to be an extremely sarcastic person. I mean, I'm saying like quick with it in a comeback or a response. And I remember Jermaine saying, I actually don't really like that a lot. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what's wrong with you? But as we talked about, if you want something to succeed, you have to take heed to the thoughts and the things that people are bringing up. And so whenever you brought that up, I was like, oh, okay, that's something I needed to work on. And so I worked on it so much 10 years later, you don't even remember that. I don't even
remember. That is crazy. However, me, I'm still the same OG.
All right.
No, I know there are tons of changes that have taken place in my life. And this kind of brings me to this question of, what are some of the things that you can probably recall? This is probably difficult now. What are some of those things that you can probably recall that you liked to do, perhaps, or that you were comfortable in, pre-marriage?
Well, I like to be myself. Because I was single for a really long time, and I enjoyed my me time. I enjoyed going wherever I wanted to go, not asking for permission.
You gotta ask for permission now?
Yeah, like, okay, hey, babe, I'm gonna go ahead. You cool? You good? You know, um, just being able to just leave and travel and do whatever you want. Go away for a weekend without worrying about, is the other person okay?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. Those were important before marriage, and then now it's like, okay, well, I guess I got to consider somebody else making decisions.
You like your freedom.
I like my freedom, and I like to make decisions. Those things are
That's
still
right.
prominent.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that has changed,
Okay.
but no, that's good. I'm trying to think about what are some of the things that I really love to do as a single person pre-marriage. I know the decision process, right? Decision making as well.
I want to point out here, Jermaine is saying as a single person pre-marriage. No, mind you, this guy hasn't been single for a really long time. You've
What do
always
you
been in a
mean?
relationship.
That's
Like,
not
what are you
true.
talking about?
That's not true.
Jermaine is one of those people like had always have somebody in his world.
That is not
Yeah.
true.
Okay. For how long? For how long were you
I
single
can
for?
recall a good 2 months where
Where he was like alone with nobody to call or
no,
nobody to be, watching out for.
right.
So you probably can't even recall like what you actually.
What I've been doing, you
Yeah.
can call it, I've been training for marriage for a
Okay.
long
Okay.
time.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
That's what it is.
Okay. Good one.
But that's awesome though. For us to, I think I know that I've grown significantly since we've been there. We talked about this in one of the episodes where, and I know this is there's still a snippet there, but I know there when we have fights or disagreements, wanting to completely separate.
Oh my gosh, that's it. I knew this is exactly where you were going. Okay, so when Jermaine and I first got together, maybe got married, and we had a first fight, and we were we were walking somewhere. And this is how much he wanted to separate. He wanted to walk on the other side of the street.
What? I don't remember that.
He was like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I'm not touching you. I don't want to look at you. So I'm going to walk on the other side of the street. I was like, dude, where are you going?
What?
Oh my gosh. That's how much he wanted to like separate and didn't want to have anything to do with the situation. Now he's getting a little bit closer.
No, what did I do? We're on the same sidewalk.
We're on the same sidewalk. But he doesn't hold my hand or anything like that. So we're getting closer. By year 20, he'll be able to hold my hands after a fight. So
No, I think that was, that's definitely a big change or obstacle for me. When did you begin to like notice, some of the changes that were taking place in your life, individually, but even as a marriage? We'll talk about collectively. I think we've evolved together as well, but individually, when did you feel like, and did you notice that yourself, or was it pointed out someone else?
I think just from wanting to be a better person.
Mhm.
I think one of the things about marriage is that we have to understand is that you have to love you as an individual
Mhm.
in order for your marriage to succeed. Like
Yeah.
you have to take care of you in physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You have to be okay with who you are and not wanting that person to satisfy your every need.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I think that just from learning and hearing, watching relationships succeed, watching those that didn't succeed, you start thinking like, okay, what is it that I need to learn so I can grow in different ways.
That's such a good point. I want to call that out or double click on that.
Okay.
As as I have
You're so
heard some
funny.
folks would say. Let's double click on that real quick. So, because if you as an individual are wanting to change just to appease your partner, I don't know how strong that is.
Yeah,
right?
that's not going to work out. Because the moment your partner does something that you're like, hey, I've been working on this, and you never point it out, you never acknowledge it, then you just be like, I'm not doing this. It's wasting my time. I'm not trying to do this for you.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be for you. You got to, just like a lot of things in life, right? When we make decisions based on other people and not for ourselves, I think it's short-lived.
Yeah, absolutely. And but when we do make decision, that's like, you know, a personal internal decision that you're going to change in this area, then you get the satisfaction because
Hmm.
you know that you are the one that's
Right.
changing, and it doesn't matter if the person acknowledges it or not. So I think that just from, again, watching other people, listening to podcasts, listening to other sermons. I think a lot of marriage sermons were helpful for me in terms of understanding who I am in a marriage and what I'm called to do.
Hmm.
And you know, my one of my favorite pastors is deceased now, but Pastor Miles Monroe, you know, he's a Bahamian pastor. He was so um, instrumental, I would say, in my understanding of a wife and in my understanding of marriage. Just
Yeah.
listening to his sermon, and like I said, he passed away back in 2014, and I didn't discover him until maybe about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And just just hearing from him, and this had nothing to do with you, but just me wanting to understand, okay, what is marriage about? What does a man need? You know,
Hmm.
like I read a few books on that and how men think, because I personally wanted to understand
Yeah.
what are the needs of you most desire, without saying, oh baby, look at what I'm doing, I'm sitting here trying
Right.
to help, trying to please you. But it's okay, I want my marriage to succeed, so let me research and find out more information, so that way I can learn and I can change and I can develop.
How important is it for me to acknowledge that change?
um I think it's important to to point it out, or point out sometimes that you see it,
Hmm.
just because, you know, for anybody, any words of affirmation, when you see somebody, like if you see someone cleaning the house all the time,
Yeah.
you know, and you never say anything, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like you're not doing it for, to get attention,
Right.
but you're doing it as in like, hey, let me make sure the house is clean and taking care of things. But you want the people that's coming in to say, oh, thank you so much for cleaning. It's not an everyday thing that you want to hear it, but you want at least some acknowledgement that,
Sure.
okay, because you worked really hard to take care of this, or you worked really hard to see this growth and things come to pass. So
Yeah.
for me, I don't think like I need like a lot of affirmation, like, babe, oh, I see you grow every week. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, I can, like you mentioned, we talked when we first started this, the sarcasm thing. It's something that's not even part of my personality anymore. And so I think that the as you grow and as you develop, it's just like some sort of affirmation to say, hey, I see there's changes here,
Yeah.
you know, that will help, I think, in marriage.
That's cool. And I'm thinking as you talk about the some of the difficulties, we might right now we might be able to spot some things in our character that we feel like that's not edifying or that's not complementary to our spouse or the marriage, and I want to change that. But you might be looking at it and seeing it as something daunting, right? And you're wondering, am I actually capable of changing this habit, changing this behavior? I mean, what are some things that you would think? How would you think about like going into even changing something that you've identified?
Well, it's this can be a tough one, because like you said, if it's something that you like, if it's the spouse has an issue with it, but you never had an issue with it,
Hmm.
and it can be tough because it's like, I like this part of my personality,
Yeah.
you know. And it's just one of those things. It's like, how is it truly affecting the marriage? Is it detrimental to the marriage, or is it something that the other person just have to live with or
Right.
get used to?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things like we gotta think about it. When it comes to like living with someone else, it's like, okay, do I really care that much? Is it really that big of a deal?
Hmm.
Or is it something that that I can just deal with? For example, personal example, for you, whenever there's dirty dishes, you often put the dishes on the counter and not in the sink.
Okay.
And I've often said to myself, why can't he just put the dishes in the sink? Like, I don't get it. Why is it on the counter? The sink is empty. He can just put it, he can just put it in the sink. And so at some points in our marriage, I had to decide, like,
You just gotta live.
yeah, like, is this really that big of a deal? You know, because did you know that you did it?
No.
No, exactly. Because I was like, this is not really that big of a deal, you know? So this is just something that I'm going to live with. And so for some people that might be like, oh my gosh, why don't you put the thing in the same? And so you got to decide, like, a little things. I don't know if that's part of your personality or not, but it's just maybe it's just a habit. And it's like, do I care if he changes it? Do I not? Yeah. And so again, my thought with this is figuring out what is it that, you know, is it something that truly matters? Yeah. Or if it is it something that you don't really care. But if it's something that really hurts the person, right, you know, embarrasses the person in public, make the person feel less than, then I really think that that's something you got to work on changing. That's so good. And that reminds me, or it brings up a couple of thoughts for me. One, going in and trying to change your spouse. Yes. Right. That is, we've heard so many times, you know, how difficult or detrimental that is for you to try and do that. You're not going there and try to, you know, change somebody from who they are. If any change is going to come, it has to happen internally, right? For that to happen. I think the most that you can do, especially if there's something that you feel like is detrimental to the relationship or it's not good, it's for it to be called out, it's to be discussed, and then for you all to walk through that journey together, understanding that, hey, this is there and it's a whatever, it's a nuisance or it's something that is affecting our relationship in some type of way. And so being able to deal with that together or figure that out. But going in there and trying to change people always backfires. Yeah, right? Completely. Because we know that you can't, no matter what you think or do or say, you can't change someone else. That's something that we had to learn as in our marriage and in terms of, I mean, Jermaine and I have completely opposite personalities in the way that completely. So different. All right. Okay. Like so different. In the way that we do things. And so I think maybe early in our marriage, we kind of had that tendency to want to sway. Yeah. Mostly you two. Mostly me to come over to the right side. Come over to the light. And I was like, yeah, no. That is not gonna work. So that was a fight because you want the person to start thinking like you, and you want the person to start being and doing things just the way that you do it, because in your mind it's like, if you just do it this way, then everyone's gonna be happy. Right. Right. And what's that sarcastic thing that you used to say all the time? If both of us were the same, then one of us will be unnecessary. Exactly. Which is true, right? Think about it. Like, if we both were the same, then we would have a very, very boring marriage. Because we would just be thinking the same and thinking alike, and that lose creativity. Yeah. You know, that lose excitement. You become a very mundane, boring, you know, like, hey, wake up at the same time, do the same thing. But the only thing that I'm looking forward to, that I would like for us to do the same, is one day for us to actually wear the same outfit. Okay. And dress alike and take pictures together. I cannot sway him in that sense. But that's what I'm looking forward to. If whenever we get to point, we can like put on a African outfit and go to Walmart together. Yeah. Okay. Anyways. That would be a good day. Anyways, so there's one more thing that made me think of this whole trying to change situation, which I believe is of a broader context. I think whenever, just in general, people having discussions and why, you know, there's disagreement within our world or whatever, right? One of the things that we learned in that premarital counseling was that illustration of the triangle. And I know I've mentioned this several times. I feel like every time I get a chance to mention this, I do, because I think it's so helpful. And that, you know, we think about this tri-union relationship between you and I and God, right? And God being at the top, us being on both ends of the triangle.
and us looking towards God for insights, right? Looking to the Word for understanding and knowledge and direction. And in doing that, we grow closer together because it's not just our opinion versus one another, or our biases and the way that we grew up and what we believe is right. That's not what's gearing, that's not the direction. Our direction is based on what God is showing us.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think that we can probably wrap this session up with that. But one of the ways that why I love that illustration as well is that when God is at the top and both of us are on each side of the triangle, it's both of us as individuals, and we both have our each connection to God. And one of the scriptures that always come to my mind when I hear this is that when Jesus told Peter, he said, "As for you, follow me."
Right.
As in, this is me and your relationship, and I'll correct you and I'll guide you and I'll instruct you. And then, that information will flow from God to you over and on into your spouse, which is going to go back to God and back down to you. And so I love that because it's that individual relationship with God, and the desire to have that grow, and to desire to see growth from in that area. And obviously we know that whenever the Bible says, when our lives pleases the Lord, even our enemies are at peace with us, which means that whenever we are focused on God, then everything else will come it will come into unity. And so I think that if we are always constantly focused on Christ, then he will guide us, instruct us in every areas where we are falling short to have good, strong relationships with our spouses, with our family, with our children, with our co-workers, because that's what the Holy Spirit does. He points out, hey, this really hurt this person, so maybe you should go and apologize, or hey, this is something that you need to work on. So I love that illustration as well, because it just makes me focus on you have to have a personal relationship with God, not a marriage relationship with God, but a personal relationship. Because if God cannot instruct you and if he cannot correct you, then there's pretty much nobody who can.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's so much more, that we could talk about, and it would be great to have probably a guest here discussing some of the real dynamics of change and maybe even some of the sciences behind it, right?
Yeah.
But I love what we talked through here. It's probably, again, another follow-up episode on this, but thank you all for joining, and we want to hear from you. Again, you can follow us and check us out on social, and go to our website as well. But thank you for listening to another episode of Relationships and Reason.
Yeah, and be sure to subscribe. Click subscribe. Double click on it and pass it to your
let's
friends.
double click on that.
Okay. And pass it on.